Welcome to News You Can Use, presented by Supreme Lending. News You Can Use offers timely information related to the housing and housing finance industry that we believe will benefit you and your customers. This is News You Can Use.
I am for everyone. I'm not for everything, but I'm still for everyone. I hope all of us can embrace that in the days ahead, because we're going to need to, not only to conquer COVID-19, but to conquer the other challenge that has just now resurfaced. Black, brown, white, Republican, Democrat, believer, not, we are all at our best when we follow a transcendent message, which is to love our neighbor, especially those that are different than us, and especially those that make it difficult. Because what happens when we have to go that extra step and tolerate differences, and when we have to go to the extra step to love those that are hard to love, it brings out the very best in all of us. Every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself will not stand. This is in the Bible, in the book of Matthew, but it also is a part of our nation's great history. In fact, when we were going through the debate about every man created equal, really, every man created equal, every woman created equal, given the equal opportunity, that's what COVID's really about, is about us getting back to our way of life, isn't it? About having the opportunity to live as the greatest nation ever. Well, once upon a time, one of the greatest leaders ever, Abraham Lincoln, he used that scripture, a house divided against itself cannot stand, to bring us together so that we could finally change our history. We still got a lot to do, obviously. Still got a lot to do. And I want you and me to be a part of the solution. So here we go again, right? I'm not for everything, but I am for everybody. And you and I, we need to be for each other, no matter whether we're black, brown, white, whether we're a Republican or Democrat, believer or not. So I just challenge you to be for everybody. You can still not be for everything. All right. Let's talk about the road to recovery and restoration. By the way, now COVID, now this, they both have very simple principles, what you and I need to do and what the nation needs to do. First, we need to love our neighbor. Second, we're all going to need to make sacrifices. We are, every single one of us. If you haven't already, you will ultimately make a sacrifice. If you're like us and you've been extraordinarily blessed as a business, you got to make sacrifices and give back those blessings to others. Why? Because it's the right thing to do. That's the road to recovery. Forgiveness. We're going to have to forgive the politicians. We're going to have to forgive each other. People have made choices. By the way, forgive your neighbor who didn't wear a mask. Don't get angry at them. Forgive them for not wearing a mask. And finally, what we all need to do is keep in mind that we can all have hope. And why is that? Because God calls us to have hope. And it also tells us in Scripture that hope deferred, not having it, makes our heart sick. And we don't want to be sick. We want to get better. All right. We said from the beginning in our News You Can Use that was dedicated to this concept of COVID-19 that there'd be three really things to watch. There'd be the actions of the Federal Reserve. There'd be the actions from Congress and the White House in terms of, and the Senate in terms of what we were going to do on fiscal policy to support. And then finally, there would be COVID-19, the health policies, and the evolution of all of those things together would give us indication of where are we in the journey to conquer and to win the battle against COVID-19. First, we've said over and over again from the very get that the Federal Reserve, they dropped interest rates. They created liquidity in the market by buying assets of every type. They've used plays that were in the playbook from the financial recession that just took place called the Great Recession. And then they've created new plays in the playbook. They've continued to move the needle in terms of their behavior because they understood the gravity of the situation from the very beginning. Let's move on to what's happened otherwise. Powell is now saying, this is the Federal Reserve Chair, that we're only a couple days away now, or days away, from making the first loans to Main Street businesses. This is the Federal Reserve. Banks usually make loans to Main Street businesses. We're now going to see the Fed create additional liquidity, and they've already said that they may in fact lose some money making these loans, but they're going to do it anyway. I would give the Fed at this point an A+ for their behavior with response to COVID-19. And again, the Fed has two mandates. That's the two things that they're supposed to do, is keep full employment. All of us want that to be the case, right? And the second thing is to keep inflation down so that we have a long-term, sustainable, growing economy. Right now, they're focused on getting employment back in shape because of the unusual nature of what's taken place. We've lost an awful lot of we've had an awful lot become unemployed. We'll get to that just in a second here. But every action they're gearing towards right now, the Fed is not on both mandates. They are focused on employment, and they're doing everything they possibly can to support the economy getting back so that it can get back to full employment, which is where it was prior to COVID-19. Now, we're starting to hear about another stimulus bill. In fact, Congress approved another stimulus bill of $3 trillion. Forget what was in it. It did not get passed by the Senate. They wouldn't take it up. Now what's happening behind the scenes is they're talking again. And just recently, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell came out and said that there will be one final stimulus. So that means to me, it's going to be big. And we will see another stimulus get done. And that will provide additional sponsorship and support. So you have monetary policy by the Fed to create environment so that we can get back to full employment. You have stimulus that is both caretaking for those that were put out of employment, no fault of their own, by COVID-19. And then a number of other issues will be a part of the stimulus to encourage long-term growth. Those things had to work together, and they have. I wouldn't give Congress and the White House an A+ at anything. But let's just say in this case, they've done a reasonably good job of getting themselves involved and at least filling a void that they needed to fill. Let's move on to health policy. The on again, off again. Should we wear a mask? Should we not wear a mask? Should we wear a mask? Should we not wear a mask? There's been a lot of opinions, but we should all give a little bit of quarter to all those that are involved. And let's not conspiracy everything. Let's just basically agree that this COVID thing happened. We haven't seen something like it in a long time. Everyone is scrambling to try to figure out how to protect us, how to support our way of life getting back as quickly as possible to all of us. So I'm not in the position to judge. I'm just like you. I'm doing the things that I'm supposed to be doing. They sometimes change, but that's okay because people are doing their very best. There are reasons why scientists continue to change their minds on this, because science is a practice, just like the medical industry, just like the law industry. Law practice, remember that? Medical practice. Well, scientists are practicing as well. And as they get new data, that data, once it gets studied, sometimes brings us to different conclusions. And by the way, we should hope that times that they disagree, and we should hope that they change their minds, because if they get the better information that's better for all of us, we should hear about it. And that's really what's happening. Okay, it's a dynamic event. And by the way, lawyers don't always agree, doctors don't always agree, and scientists don't always agree on the data. So that's why there are some disagreeing. And what we need to do is continue to trust and have hope that we're getting closer and closer and closer to solutions that will bring our way of life back to all of us. Let's talk about the macro economy. Okay, that's the big picture. And by the way, it matters to you and I because housing generally is a tell for how the economy is going to do. So if housing is healthy in America, housing's about 20 to 25% of the total economy in our country. So it plays a big role. Therefore, the Federal Reserve, therefore, Congress and the White House, they want housing to work. Why? Because then the economy is more likely to be working. Let's talk about retail sales. Retail sales are about 70% of the total economy. So really the bottom line is we can tell by housing, we can tell by retail sales where we're going. Nordstrom sales, not good. One of my favorite stores, great service company. We fashion a lot of our thinking around them. Their sales fell 40% during this period of time in the first quarter, actually. And that's because most of us just weren't going anywhere, let alone going out to shop in a typical retail store like Nordstrom. Certainly online still works, but let's face it, if you're staying home, I don't know, you don't need a lot of new clothes to stay home. Anyhow, we saw their sales really fall off the charts. They're saying they're going to be able to stay in business. We've seen a lot of retailers already file bankruptcy, which is a form of protection so they can stay in business. I don't want to get sidetracked by that. Here's what's happened in the retail sales business. We've seen declines in March of about 8% and in April of 16%. So we expected that. If you remember now, in the V or in the U, there had to be first the down numbers. And we knew that was going to happen because we basically, as I've said in the past, we put ourselves into a economic coma. We self-induced it. And of course, now we're hoping that we're at the bottom of the V or the U and we can start making that climb out because we need to climb out. All of those that essentially want to get back to work need to climb out. And all right, okay, many of you know that I run this program called Personal Professional Best. And a part of the program is that people would save more money. But my goodness gracious, we're saving too much money right now. Never. But I will say this, our savings rate is through the roof as America goes right now. And that's good news because those are dollars that can go back to spend in the retail business at Nordstrom's. They can go back to spend for travel with Delta Airlines. They can go back to spend at restaurants and bars. And once upon a time, we used to have this thing called football. And it's like 3 months away. And people used to actually go to these places and watch these gladiators play. It was amazing. And they pay to go and they would employ a lot of people as a result of it. We got to get back to that. And so there's dollars in the bank accounts of Americans today at a rate that's been higher than we've seen in a very long period of time, ready to go to work as soon as we get opened up to go, which we're now opened up, not completely, but a lot of the states have opened up. In fact, all of them have opened at some level, and they're continuing to move in that direction. Let's just hope. Let's hope and pray that we don't have a reversal. Let's hope that COVID gets shut down, at least for a period of time, by the weather, which there's a theory that it will get shut down by the weather or materially diminished by the weather. We'll hope that that's going to be the case. Okay, this past week on Thursday, by the way, every Thursday, not since COVID, every Thursday, the government releases its unemployment numbers in terms of new filing for unemployment. These are people that have the right to go and file. I've lost my job, and now I'm filing to collect unemployment claims until I can get a new job. We started out with numbers that were through the roof, and we've, in cumulative now, over the last 10 weeks, we've had almost 40 million Americans file for unemployment. The good news is last week, the number was lower than it's been since COVID started, only 2.1 million of new filing. That's not good. It's still huge. However, it's certainly way down from where it was. And here's the other really good news. The overall outstanding folks went down 4 million. So we lost 4 million of those that have been in continuing claims is what it's referred to. So if your claim stays out there, you file for unemployment and you stay on it, those numbers, they went down 4 million. So that means people are starting to go back to work. And that's good news for all of us. We expected to see that. We need it to happen because all those people that will go back to work will wind up then returning to a way that's closer to normal. And that's something that we all desperately want. We do need to understand that June, we're going to get some anecdotal information. I'm going to share with you in a minute here some very positive anecdotal information about the economy because that means we're starting to see some turn. We're starting to see the economy turn back on as we've reopened it. That's not shocking or surprising. We closed the economy. Now we're reopening it, so business will start picking up some. So we'll get some anecdotal information. But the major economic numbers that we'll see starting this Friday with the unemployment number for the month of May. So most of the numbers we'll get in June will be numbers from May. And those numbers won't be good. In fact, we expect the unemployment number this week. I would just tell you, don't read the news on Friday, because that number, which is a trailing number, not a what's happening today in the market, but it is going to be potentially as high as 20%, as some are talking about, which is the highest, one of the highest numbers ever, other than during the Great Depression. So, and again, we did this, shut arguably one of the better economies ever in America down. The belief on the V, immediate bounce back, is, well, when we turn the lights on, the economy will come right back up. Yeah, I'm less believer of the V than I am probably the U, or a combination of the U and the Nike Swish, how they got on there, how they got into this conversation. We talked about this last time. Really great marketing company. They know how to get into stuff like this. The L, we don't believe is going to happen. We don't think that with the economy that we had and the Federal Reserve's actions and the stimulus, including the next one that's going to be by far the biggest one, and according to the government, the last one, we don't believe that that's going to lead to a crash and never recover economy. We believe that it's more like the U and the swoosh kind of combined together. We're going to go down and we're going to start coming up, and then we're going to trajectory up in the late part of this year. So on the reopening of the economy, again, basically all the states now at some level have reopened more or less. And again, please, I am for everybody. I'm not for everything. So we tend to really quickly in this country now, because of the news sources that we get, which is constant, and it's also really opinionated, which is not what news is supposed to be, but it is what it is today. We tend to put things places right or wrong right away. And we need to respect the fact that we're all different. We're all unique. We have unique backgrounds, talents, skills, and beliefs, and we can still be for each other and not always agree. So the states are not a one-size-fits-all type of thing. I went to my beach home last month, last month now, because we're in June. And you know what? The county where the home exists had less than 50 cases of COVID. So their view on it is just different. It's not a one-size-fits-all. And that's been part of the challenge from the very beginning, is we tend to want to make it neat, like a one-size-fits-all thing, but it's not. So we have to leave everyone out there, all the states, to kind of decide their own course, if you will, getting the best information. And we've already talked about the health policy, sometimes back and forth on things. But again, I think everybody is doing the best they can. It's just life. Testing, treatment, vaccine, all those things are a part of the process. We're hearing about them every day. There's some optimism from a number of credible sources that are starting to tell us that there's real breakthroughs taking place, and that we'll probably get a vaccine, if not at the end of the year, sooner than normal. Let's put it that way. And there are additional treatments that are starting to have some impact. And I think over time, our scientists are the best in the world. I think we'll figure it out. I really do. When businesses open, will people come back? Well, part of the issue has been publicized is about the unemployment checks that people have been getting have been so high that a lot of people make more money now not being employed. They'll change that, I'm sure, with this next stimulus plan that's coming out. But the bottom line is those are dollars that people maybe have been saving. So when they do go back to work, they'll have some excess dollars to spend. The question is going back to work, when and what will that look like? And that's a whole complexity in and of itself. Will the customers return? I'll tell you what, the last couple of weeks has been, I've been optimistic, because when I was at the beach, it was really crowded. And you've all seen those pictures in bars and otherwise that a lot of people have judged, and I get it, okay? But again, I'm for everybody. Maybe I'm not for the bars being full at this time, but I'm for everybody. So let's not be hateful towards people. But anyway, will customers return? I hope so, and I hope you'll be one of them. I'm going to be one of them. I'm going to continue to do everything I can to make whatever sacrifice I need to make to help everybody I can, because I want to see this nation thrive again. That's what I want to see, and I know you do too. Employee and customer safety are paramount. Of course they are. So we're going to have to figure this out, and again, against the dynamic of what health policy is telling us, mask, no mask, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And some business will be changed forever. They will be, and here's what I challenge all of us, right? One of the great sayings that we have here at Supreme Southeast is complacency, not making change, is the enemy of best. What I would challenge all of us is that let this time be a time where we do make change, don't be complacent, we do get better, and we'll take into consideration what that's going to look like based on the world as it has now been effectively at some place changed as a result of COVID-19. You once upon a time remember 9/11, right? Well, afterwards, prior to, we didn't have TSA. We didn't have the waits at the airport and all those kind of things. Then we did. And we've all learned to live with those things. So we get to the airport a little bit earlier, do all those things because we have to. Well, we'll have some of those things, all of us will, to make changes about as a result of COVID-19. I challenge you, and we are doing everything we can as your partners to bring to bear, and we'll talk about that in a second, any and all benefits we possibly can as a result of what's happened with COVID-19 to make our partnership better, ours with you. Consumer confidence. Let's talk about some good news. These are the anecdotes I mentioned just a few minutes ago about the economy. We're starting to get some of them now. Consumer confidence actually improved in this past month. And that was a good news story because consumer confidence is a precedent to consumer spending, meaning when people start feeling better about the future, then they get more confident. That's registered now in the consumer confidence, which comes out once a month. And that usually leads to seeing an increase in spending. So we're expecting that we are now in the middle of, like I said, if it's not a V, if it's kind of a U or a swoosh, we're starting to climb now and we'll get more data. By the time we get July's data on unemployment and otherwise, we should start seeing movement in consumer activity in terms of retail sales and in unemployment, all favorable from where they would have been as we report June's data. Mortgage demand, anecdotally, in the last week, we're starting to see 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we're seeing a progressive improvement in our home purchase activity. In fact, our activity in the last 2 weeks is now higher, that's right, higher than it was this time last year. Let me say that again. Our activity at Supreme Southeast is now above the previous year in the middle of this COVID event. So it tells me that at the second half of March and the first couple of weeks of April, we kind of did the V thing down. And now we're starting to see the climb take place. And all of this will continue to get reported over the next month and two. And we'll start seeing optimism, hope for the future because of the data. We've also seen home prices, and all of you know inventory's been very shallow going into the year, and it got even more shallowed with COVID-19. All that data is well publicized, and you as realtors understand it. But the demand is growing, and so hopefully we'll see listings come back to the marketplace so we get some additional supply out in front of us. But because there's a limited amount of inventory, we're also seeing housing prices, which is a good thing. Because when housing prices are stable and going higher, there's additional confidence to buy a home. What we don't want to see is housing prices going down because then consumers think about maybe I shouldn't buy right now because maybe the value of what I buy is going to go lower. And so they wait. That's never good, by the way. On the topic of housing finance, really important, forbearance, not forgiveness, forbearance. We've said that over and over again. Forbearance was a part of the initial stimulus. It was simple. It was the idea that because of COVID and the government's decision to shut the lights off of the economy, to put it in a coma, they wanted to support those that were going to get impacted. And a way that they did that is the government-backed mortgages, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, VA, they were going to give buyers of those consumers who bought those mortgages, your consumers and mine, they were going to give them the opportunity to stop paying for a 3-month, 6-month, year period of time, depending upon the severity of their situation, forbearance, but they were not going to get forgiven on having to pay it. They were just going to change when it needed to get paid. So that was a big deal because it created a big anxiety in the mortgage industry and the servicing business. And so therefore they didn't want to buy those loans from us. And still there's some issues along those lines. And the reason they didn't, the servicers, it's really simple. When a mortgage customer, your customer, makes their payment, the servicer advances it to the owner of the mortgage, the bond owner. When they don't make the payment, the servicer still has to make the payment. That's right, the servicer has to make the payment on behalf of the consumer. So when we approved forbearance, a good thing for those who were in need, the government, the consequence, unintended, was that it was going to create all kinds of challenges and pressure for the servicing industry in our business. And that repercussion would be to tighten credit, both in terms of credit score and other types of programs. And we saw that particularly in April and May. And so this article kind of tells the story. Lenders have gotten stricter with credit in terms of credit scores, loan to values in some cases. Certainly the big banks have just gone way down the road with this, way down the road. There's a lot of them are stopping offering home equity lines. A lot of them went to 700 on credit scores. A lot of the jumbo market pulled out completely, those that were buyers of the jumbo market. So it's definitely true that forbearance issue and the unemployment number in tow have led to increased delinquencies or non-payments. And that has led lenders then, the community, to begin to tighten down who they make loans to, because they don't want more loans being made to people who don't pay them. That'd be logical, right? But I think it's important you don't need a perfect credit score to actually get a loan today. And you can still get loans with 3.5% down payment, minimal down payments. Don't read everything you hear. There's still available credit out there. It's a little bit more difficult these days to do it. On the topic of credit, starting 5 weeks ago, we introduced a new program because we don't want to be complacent at Supreme. And when we saw what was happening with the credit changes, we wanted to bring to bear a tool for all of you and for your consumers to make sure that every single potential buyer that you had a chance to buy. So we created a program called Credit Essentials with Lisa Myers. Lisa is a credit whisperer. She's a credit oracle. She's been in the industry, the credit industry, for years, and the mortgage credit industry is one of the biggest companies in America. She joined our company back in the fall, a blessing, thank you God, because now we are offering Lisa and Credit Essentials every Friday at 1 p.m. All you have to do is tell your customers, go on. There's a 30-minute tutorial by Lisa on how to improve your credit score, how to do it. And there's two reasons to do it, okay? One is that way you can ensure that you're going to be able to buy a home, because if your credit score today is in the high 500s, low 600s, you're not going to be able to buy a home. If you can get your credit score higher, and you can, then you can turn into a home buyer. And you want, and I want, and we both need every single buyer we can get. Amen? Amen, right? So that's one reason to do it. The second reason is as your credit score goes higher, the cost of money comes down. The cost of money in credit cards comes down. The cost of money in auto loans come down. And the cost of money in home mortgages is reduced. Take a look at the chart. If you're at a 700 credit score versus a 640, there's 1 3/4 points difference that a buyer has to pay by being at 640 versus 700. 1 3/4 points on a $200,000 loan. Really, that is $3,500. That's how big the difference is. So if your buyers will attend our program, we don't guarantee their credit score will go up, because they got to take action, do certain things to have that happen. But we're giving them the education they need so that they can go to a higher credit score. And look, if you have a 700 credit score, that's good, right? You got the 740, you would save $1,500. So everyone can save money by increasing their credit score. You just need to know how. And we've got the Oracle, the credit whisperer, Lisa Myers, 1 o'clock on Fridays. Send your customers. You don't have to come. I encourage you to come to one of the programs so you can see what's up. By the way, there's a lot of credit repair companies. Don't use them. There's a lot of companies out there that are trying to take advantage of consumers on these things. We're not doing any of those things. We're just simply creating an educational forum and platform to speak to an issue that COVID brought up, and we don't want to be complacent, right? None of us do, because complacency is the enemy of best. We want to do things that are behaviorally improving. And as a result of COVID, had COVID not happened, we wouldn't have done the Credit Essentials program, maybe. Now we are, and we're seeing amazing results. So here's one of our loan officers, and this is what he had to say, a testimony on, we'll have plenty of your customers, trust me, in the next month, start testifying to this. Lisa saved over 4 deals of mine in the past month by showing me exactly what to do to improve my customer's credit score. Lisa's a godsend to our company, especially for everyone needs to know, especially the sales staff, the resource and the insight she can provide. So what Lisa does, she hosts the program on Friday. If the potential buyer, wants an individual consulting plan, simply need to get together with our LO, make their request to Lisa, and Lisa will come back and say, oh, I've looked at your individual credit now. Here are the things you can do, and you'll see your credit score go much higher. And we've had some stories where they've gone up 50 points now, 75 points. That's an awful lot of money being saved. And it guarantees and ensures that you'll be able to do that transaction and allow those folks to be a part of the American dream, as they call it, right? And be a homeowner. We want that for everybody that can possibly qualify. So we want to help, and we're doing things to do it. Supreme Rescue Service. This is another one of those really cool programs that we're offering. So if, in fact, in the dynamic and the flux, if you will, of this entire event called COVID, if a loan gets stuck at a bank, more than likely, no disrespect, I'm for everybody, remember, just not for everything. I'm not for banks taking 60, 90 days to do things because consumers need to get done quicker. You need to get paid quicker. But back to, I'm for everybody. I'm really for the Supreme Rescue Service. Why? Because we set up this program especially so if you had a loan in trouble, you were a listing agent or you were a buyer's agent, the buyer decided to go someplace and it gets in trouble, you can get in touch with your Supreme LO. It's a part of your account management team, and they can go ahead then and allow our folks, who are some of the best in the world at doing this, to assess the situation and see if there is, as a second opinion, a better way. And there likely is a better way to restructure and to get things done. That's the Supreme Rescue Service. Dial it up when you need it. Our stats say it all. I just want to remind you of what we do here. Our inspiration is to deliver the industry's best customer experience. Why? Because when you finish with your customers, when they finalize that transaction and they sign it and you get paid, then they either are raving fans and advocates for you and for us, or they're less so. And if we do our job the way we are inspired to do it, deliver the industry's best customer experience, we're increasing the equity that that customer has in terms of interest to be a raving fan of ours and yours. And the way we do that is we track everything. We do our surveys at closing, so we get, and we do, 95% of our surveys we get back. That's amazing. So it statistically is accurate. Our SAT rates are 98.7. Can't make everybody happy. We certainly try. It also suggests that we're not perfect, but we're real good, and we focus on this, and we report it, and we pay all of our associates effectively are graded based on that work. Close on time, fund on time, every time, so you get paid on time. And close really quickly, that's another thing that we like to do. Supreme Lending will do whatever it takes. Our close on time rates, 99.3% of the time, the money's there waiting on time, on the date, when it was supposed to. 99.3%. Very few people actually track this number, lenders, because they don't really want you to know what the number is. So it's really important, as you know, because when people are in the middle of moving, my mother-in-law right now, God bless her, is in the middle of moving right now. And I'll tell you what, past COVID, she's so stressed about moving, and she's done it a few times in her lifetime. And it's an amazing place where she's going to get to move to, but the stress that goes along with the entire process, I empathize with, and we want to make sure we get out of the way and make ourselves a really positive contributor to the experience rather than adding to the stress. And Supreme Speed, woo! We're fast. We can go start to finish in 8 days. The government won't let us go in less than 8. We can go start to finish in 8 days. right? So of course the customer's got to be motivated like we are, but if they're motivated, you're motivated, we got a seller motivated, we can go start to finish in 8 days. You may say, why would we have to do that? I'll tell you why we'd have to do that. Loan sat someplace else, got, let's just say, aged. You should age wine, not loans. So if it was someplace else and it was a problem, we can get in and get out in a hurry. The second thing is, as a buyer with low inventory in the market, you don't know, but maybe the seller wants to get out really quickly. And if you put us in the contract with you, we can get there in and out in 8 days. In the past month, we've done over 250 transactions in less than 15 days. And we did multitude of those 250 in 8 days. So Supreme Speed, when you need speed, call Supreme. I'm going to finish today kind of where we started. And that is this Thursday, we have our Personal and Professional Best program, which this month is a blessing. To celebrate Memorial Day and those that fought for our way of life, we decided to invite Captain Charlie Plum to our program. Captain Plum is an amazing human being with an amazing story of sheltering in place, an amazing story of social distancing, amazing story of being quarantined, amazing story of not using toilet paper for 2,103 days. His story, trust me, is amazing, and it's a blessing and will be a blessing to all of us. He chose better, not bitter, and because he chose better, he wound up taking with that experience, having been a POW for 2,103 days, an amazing blessing that he shares with all of us. And his life is a testimony to what better and choosing better can deliver. I want to remind all of us today as we close that it's important about this road to recovery for COVID-19. But the road to recovery is not just about COVID-19. The road to recovery can be in your own personal relationships at home. The road to recovery can be in your health as a human being. The road to recovery can be in your personal financial life. The road to recovery may be in recapturing some fun in life, right? We've all lost out on that a bit lately. The road to recovery can be about your faith and restoring. The road to recovery can be about rebuilding your business. And in fact, at any stage in life, we may run into adversity like COVID-19 and like the challenges that we're faced off with now as a result of some of the recent things that have happened in America that have challenged all of us. I'm just reminded today of this. So we have the greatest way of life in the world. Perfect? No way. Are the people that are in it perfect? No way. But what I want all of us to leave with today is this concept. Be for everybody. Just don't be for everything, and that's okay. But remind yourself always, first and foremost, to be for everybody. That'll keep you choosing better and not bitter. It will keep you focused on bringing out the best of yourself and bringing that best into the lives of other people, especially those who don't deserve it, especially those who are difficult to love. I challenge all of us to do that. And I challenge all of us to be a part of the story, the road to recovery. And I will look forward to hopefully meeting you again on Thursday at our Personal Professional Best program with Captain Plum. I guarantee you will not be disappointed. I look forward to talking to you again next week with an update and news you can use. We'll continue to share with you what's happening in terms of the economy and COVID-19. Have a blessed day.